Once upon a time. Well, actually, last weekend. On Friday, I rode my silver Jeep down 95 to Powhatan County to go to the mill. I had been there 1 year earlier to do a wedding for Scott and Jenna, friends of mine. The mill is a gorgeous place, 5 acres and a grove of trees, 5 cleared acres and a grove of trees. There's an acre of parking with mostly gravel, and there is a stream to the left as you face the mill. The stream's about 20 feet wide, and it's gorgeous. And when I was there this Friday, it was rushing because of the rain we've received. The mill itself is made out of a brown limestone. Stones about 2.5 by 2.5 by 2.5, stacked 15 feet tall. The roof is gone now. It's a 100-year-old mill, and the grinding floor is empty with just concrete. Often a wedding is done there. I had been there before. I received a call a year ago from Lauren and Chris who asked if I would do their wedding, and I was thrilled. All of our counseling, the 3 counseling sessions we had, were done by Skype. And then I met them in Fredericksburg to do the last one to find out what it was that they wanted. Chris told me what he wanted to hear was from Paul's letter to the Corinthians, the 13th chapter, that says, the greatest of these is love. So as I'm driving down, I've got all these ideas. I've done some research. I know them really well. I'm thinking about what is it I'm going to say that's going to make this story come alive for them? How do you take something that's been used so that it's cliched and it can become something they love and they hear? So as I'm driving, I get a story that I want to tell. And the story goes like this. Once upon a time, in a galaxy not too far away, there was a huddle of acorns underneath a giant oak tree. The acorns loved where they lived. They were made primarily of baby boomer acorns who loved to go to self-help classes, like how to make the best out of your shell. And millennial, 20-something acorns who bar hopped from one bar to the next, talking about how they never ever wanted to do anything baby boomers had ever done. They often attended together recovery groups to heal the bruises that came from falling from the original oak tree. They loved to go to the nearby spa where they oiled their shells and got them polished while they were inhaling acorn-pathic therapies made for longevity and well-being, because that's just how these acorns roll. Sorry. One day, out of the sky, dropped by a bird flying by, was a strange little acorn, capless and covered in mud, and when it hit the ground in the middle of the acorns, it began to stutter and stammer. They gathered around to see what it was she was trying to say, and what she did was, she pointed to the giant oak tree above them, and then in haunting words said, "We are that!" The acorns huddled around, said, "Preposterous, obviously delusional." One of them got enough courage to engage her in conversation and said, "How actually," must have been a millennial, "how actually are we going to become that?" And she, stammering again, said, "I don't know. It has something to do with being buried in the ground and cracking open your shell." Morbid. If we did that, we wouldn't even be acorns anymore. That's the story I want to tell Chris and Lauren. But I don't know how to tie it into a wedding. But it's such a cool story. So I'm thinking, what I want to do is I want to bury the memory of this wedding so deep in their soul that they never forget it. That throughout their lives, they're going to remember this event. And I'm the guy in charge. I'm running the wedding. I'm up front in a black robe, and everybody's got their eye on me. I ought to be able to do something that locks it in. I'm driving home trying to figure out how I can lock in that event so that they remember it. They orient around it. When they ask themselves, "Who am I?" they can say, "Oh, I'm the person married to that person." The reason I'm driving back is they could not reserve the mill for the rehearsal and then the wedding on Saturday. The wedding wasn't until Sunday, so I was coming back for Saturday. I was coming back for Saturday evening because there was an event where we gathered together at the Green Turtle in Kingstown. 25 people who are working hard to make Kingstown a new church were starting vibrant. And I came back for Saturday afternoon for a funeral for Kent Siegel, a member of our church who's been here forever. I sat down with the family the week before as we planned Kent's service. Do you remember Kent? He was usually an usher at the 8:30 service. He was 81 years old. I got here 14 years ago. He was a vibrant, vital man. When he was born, his father immediately left the family, and his mother raised him. And the way she was able to pull it off is she moved in with her mother and father and her 6 sisters. So Kent had 8 women around him at all times, which is why I think he joined the Navy, where he made a career for 29 years, became a captain in charge of gigantic ships and 4 submarines. A remarkable person and an easy man to fall in love with. He became a second father to many of the men that he led, a leader of men. And when the call came that he had died over the phone, Addie told me grown men wept. They had known he was fighting cancer for 2 years, but they were hoping it wouldn't come to an end. You know how we are, delusional and believing only the best. 2 years ago when he got the diagnosis, he bravely took the chemotherapy. But over the 2 years, he went from this vibrant man who had sailed the 7 seas to a man that was locked in a neighborhood, in a house, in one room that he couldn't leave. It is easy if you're Addie. Addie and Kent raised 3 girls. It's easy if you're Addie to fall in love with a man in a Navy uniform, a man who commands a ship whose guns sound like thunder and can make the ground shake. Fall in love with a man who commands thousands. But it is a special love to pay attention when life breaks you open. It's a special love to pay attention and find something beautiful there. A beauty that no one else notices but you. At his service, I used a passage from the scriptures that described God's strength made perfect in our weakness. I don't remember anything else I said. You are a magnificent church. You had a funeral in the morning, you had a funeral in the afternoon. Between the women of this congregation and the custodial staff, you made both families feel loved. And I am deeply grateful. You know that sense of being disoriented, that you thought you know how life was supposed to work and what shows up isn't what you wanted? That you were enchanted with a story, but the real world isn't like the story? That you thought God was the one who made everything perfect, and when it isn't perfect, you wonder if God is there? You're like Tarzan who's let go of one vine and is free falling, hoping to find another. You're like Linus sitting in front of the dryer waiting for the blanket to come out. We have nothing to hold on to. That's what this Psalm 13 is all about. Did you hear it? How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul? I have sorrow in my heart all day long. How long shall my enemy exult over me? There are times when you and I figured out what God ought to be doing next, and when that doesn't show up, we believe it's God's fault, not us. And then I said, God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. So I headed home after the service on Saturday and wondered what I was going to say on Sunday. It's one of these terrible things you and I do is we launch young couples into marriage, and I know where they're headed. And they have no idea. So I got there. I left early Sunday morning because 95 can be a bear getting from here to Powhatan County. It can take 5 hours. When I got there, I put on my robe, and I met the bride was upstairs in this dressing room, and I got to see her. You know, all the women at a wedding are only allowed to be there if they're gorgeous and smart. And then when you go to see the men, you know they're just lucky to be there. So I said hi to everybody. I shook everybody's hand. I met the parents, the family. I then stood in my place waiting for the wedding party. And all the guests came, about 150 people came, all dressed in their very best. And aunt who's dressed in kind of a red rust, and you kind of think, well, that's an interesting choice for a wedding. Suits and ties, and handsome and thriving, and children all over the place screaming and crying and sounding like life, and it's vibrant. There's this grassy knoll right in front of this old mill. The mill wasn't large enough to hold the wedding party, so we were on white chairs on the grass, and there was a path that we walked down. I was at the head of the path and underneath this beautiful wreath, and there they came. All the wedding party, all the men came in and all the women came in and the children came in. You know how gorgeous children are? The children came in. The mothers had already been seated and the grandfather, and then Lauren came in on her father's arm. I looked at the mother of the bride. Her name's Donna Holder. Donna had brought Lauren into church when Lauren was a baby, and I baptized her. Donna was a banker who stopped banking so she could raise 3 children. And when the children were of a certain age, she felt a call to the ministry. She stayed at that church where I was, went to seminary for 3 years, got her degree, and became an associate pastor at Woodlake Church beside me. Her daughter I not only baptized, but I dedicated as an acolyte and confirmed in the faith, celebrated her high school and college graduations. And she wanted me to do her wedding. So you should know that I love Lauren. Chris is okay. It's the kind of love you have in which you know whoever this person you love decides to marry, it will not be good enough. And I think she should marry me. So. Donna has helped me celebrate my 40th birthday and my 50th birthday and my 60th. We are the best of friends. And so I knew what I wanted to do at the wedding. I told the story with Lauren in front of me after I said, "Dearly beloved, we are gathered together here in the sight of God and the presence of these witnesses to join Lauren and Chris in holy matrimony." I did the prayer, "God of creation, the giver of life and the perfecter of love." I said, "Will you take this woman to be your wife? Will you take this man to be your husband?" And then I got to do the sermon. I read the passage from Corinthians about love, and then I told the story about the acorns. And then I told the climax of the story. It has something to do with being buried and your shell cracking open. And then I said, "Your love is a force of nature, like melting snowpacks in the spring, causing streams to swell and rivers to rage, and it's going to pick you up and take you places you never would have gone alone. Your love is an utterly, delightfully devastating force of nature that will crack you open to call out of you who you really are. So I want you to remember this day. We've spent a lot of money on this place. We've taken off our time to be here for 4 days. We're giving you all of our best wishes, all of our best gifts, because we want you never, ever to forget this event. We want you dancing and drinking and eating. We want you celebrating and laughing, talking to everybody you can see in the room, to see the warm smiles on their face and the well wishes in your ear, so that when the future comes, there is just one picture you'll look at, one word you'll hear, one touch you'll feel, and it will trigger a cascade of all the love of the joy of this event. Because we know life can be hard, and we want you oriented here, because when disorientation comes, we want you to have some place to return to. Because we know what's going to happen. We know that in a couple days, you're going to be on your honeymoon. And you're going to stand naked next to each other, wrapped in saran wrap. And it's going to be as close as you can imagine two human beings ever being. And then one of you is going to get an itch. One of you is going to want to breathe. You'll remove the saran wrap, put on clothes, and invite friends over for a taco party and a Netflix Game of Thrones marathon. You're going to buy a guppy. And then you're going to move into a new house with new furniture and an 80-inch TV screen. You're going to get jobs and promotions and need 3 phones to take care of all the people who want to make contact with you. You'll have a Labrador retriever and a kid, probably in that order. You will work from 6:30 in the morning to 8:30 at night. Your kids are going to be in travel soccer. You're never going to see each other. The only way you're going to communicate are by text. And you will sometimes wonder who the text is from or why aren't they writing me now? About 10 years in, you will never ever see or talk to each other. And late at night, about midnight, Lauren, you're going to go down into the kitchen. You're going to open every kitchen cabinet, every drawer, and then you're going to yell at Chris, "Where is the saran wrap?" I don't want you to ever forget when disease comes into the family for your parents or your grandparents or for one of you, what it is to be beautifully broken. I want you to remember that your love is an utterly, delightfully devastating force of nature. That when God made the world, love is how we perfect it. I think it's a great sermon. When the wedding is over and I've said you may kiss the bride, I stand with the family for pictures. And Donna, Lauren's mother, says, "Saran wrap? Really?" And I'm thinking, did you not remember the oak story? And then his aunt, the woman that was dressed in the rust red dress, came up to me and said, "You know the first anniversary is paper. I'm sending saran wrap." Lauren texted me a couple days after the wedding because she's a type A personality and wanted to make sure I was sending in the license. And because I didn't respond quick enough to the text, she called me. And she began to talk to me about the license, and then she just broke into laughter. When life is disorienting and you don't know what to hold on to, I want you to know that you're loved by a God that is faithful to you and will never let you go. By people here in this space who want to know your name and pray for whatever you need. Once upon a time, I offer to you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.